Jpegmafia, also known as Peggy, is a rapper who has seen a pretty huge rise over the past few years. It was mostly due to the success and the critical acclaim and the huge cult following that came through with his album Veteran. People weren't particularly fond of my review, as some of you may remember if you've been following me since the year that album dropped. When was it? 2017? God, was that 2017? No. 2018? Veteran. 2018. I think it was 2018. Yeah, 2018. God, that feels like a long time ago since that album dropped. That's insane. But yeah, not a particularly positive reception to that review that I did of that one. You can go back and watch it. I'm not entirely sure if my review holds up, but my opinions have really stayed the same. Yeah, he always has something to say. He always has a bite back. He always has a comment to make about someone else. He always, has a witty joke that he can kind of throw out there that people enjoy. He has something in his rapping style that people are drawn to, but I just preferred Cornballs. I think his direction, focusing more on the production side of things and tidying things up and being very creative with his production style too, by the way, just works so much better for him. Yeah, sure, that same attitude came through in some of the lines on Cornballs, but it wasn't anywhere near as potent, and I just enjoyed the way the music sounded on that album way more. And I feel like this album's a bit of a combination of both albums, actually. I feel like this new one here, LP, which, by the way, I am focusing on the offline version because this is technically the one he wanted to put out anyway. And, it's pretty accessible. You can get it on Bandcamp, so, it's pretty easy to listen to. I feel like the online version really exists because he wanted something on streaming, but he couldn't put out the actual version of the album that he wanted on streaming because of all the sample issues. So yeah, I'm focusing on the offline version here. But yeah, I sort of get the impression that he's trying to blend the production creativity of Cornballs, but bring back that fierce attitude that he had on Veteran. And I sort of feel like that attitude is starting to fizzle out. I mean, having spoken to people that love Veteran, I've seen people even say that, look, it was funny back then, but the fact that he's still kind of repeating similar ideas with his lyrics is getting a bit stale. It is getting a bit monotonous, and I can kind of see it. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of it to begin with anyway, but on this new album here, there's just this aura of bitterness soaking the album in an unnecessary way. I always feel like he's addressing the naysayers. He's addressing someone that's done him wrong. He has an opinion on everyone who has an opinion on him, and I think it's a pretty stale rapping style, to be honest. I think you end up having nothing to say when you're saying the same thing all the time. And it just gets pretty rough to listen to. You don't always have to prove yourself, Prove yourself through your talents. Show people that you are an amazing rapper by not telling the people that think you aren't that you are. You don't have to do that all the time. And it wouldn't be bad if it was a couple of songs, but it's dripping on this whole album. It's a shame because I think there's loads to like about this album, and my first listen of this album I was really impressed, but the more I listened to it, the more I just grew tired of Peggy himself, to be honest. It got really monotonous. There's loads of good tracks on here though. Trust, I think, kicks off the album really well. I kind of like his manic delivery on this one, although it's not manic, but the way he's kind of saying so many things all at once and he kind of speeds through. I feel great. I just think there's something so delusional and delirious about it, but I kind of find it quite fun. I also think the production sounds really good on this track as well. I did already do a reaction to this, so my opinion of this one hasn't really changed all that much. I still think it's cool. I think Dirty has more of that creative production from Peggy as well. I feel like, again, he's just stretching the ideas that he took from Cornballs and taking it beyond on this track. I really like What Kind of Rapping Is This? I think his delivery on this track is great. I think, some of his wordplay is pretty clever here as well, even though I was just saying how I wasn't entirely, convinced on some of his rapping, but I do actually think this track's great. The usual edgy lyrics come through on Rebound, but he kind of sells it with his delivery. It's an incredibly gritty track. Like, this song has such a hard beat, and I don't really necessarily mind if some of the lyrics are edgy in his usual kind of fashion, because he just sells the fuck out of this one, and I think he would benefit a bit more actually from more tracks like this. And Has a Duty Pay, the same compliment really. Oh my god, this track is just so heavy with the way he's rapping. He's like and the bloody vocal sample. There's just so much going on this track, holy shit, but it works so bloody well. I really like this one as well. So there's just so much to praise, particularly about the first leg of the album. A lot of these tracks I've mentioned so far are in like the first 10-ish tracks. Thoughts Prayer as well, I mean, it is just a bit haha random XD that he's doing a Britney Spears song for essentially no reason. I don't mind it though. I think his singing actually kind of works here. I like the melodic direction that he goes in. Again, similar to his last album, he does this quite a bit and I think it works for him, but not entirely sure of why he chose to do this. I mean, assumedly this was one of the tracks he couldn't get on streaming. I mean, surely, like, I'd be surprised if he was able to clear a Britney Spears sample. But yeah, there's just a bit of a turning point for me. Like, some of the tracks just start to feel as random as Thoughts Prayer once you get to like the second half, with tracks like 100. Feels honestly random and pointless. Don't know what he's trying to go for in this one. It chops up the album in such an unnecessary way. It barely segues into the next track either. So you'd expect maybe it was some kind of, you know, purposeful interlude moving on to something else, but it doesn't really do that. And most importantly, the vocals sound completely arse on this one. Like, oh my god, they are arse. As my boy Eric the Young God would say, this is wipe my ass quality, but I am British, so I will say wipe my arse, because this makes me want to wipe my arse. OG is undersold by Peggy himself, because this track really feels like it's paying an homage to the golden age of hip-hop, the golden age of those wonderful hip-hop days, but I just feel like his rapping undercuts it, and he doesn't really add anything to the track. Maybe give this to a different rapper, and they'd maybe make more of this, but I still kind of stand by the fact that I don't know if Peggy is that great of a rapper. He flows like crazy and brings the high energy on tracks like Has a Duty Pay and also, you know, Rebound as well. But sometimes I'm just left feeling cold with his rapping. Tired, Nervous and Broke. Hip hop tried to belittle me. Pussy's trying to put me in a box, whatever the line he says. I'm paraphrasing it, but like, so many tracks just have lyrics like this. Like, there can't be that many enemies you've made. Like, you can't have that many enemies. There can't be that many people that you really have to reference on your albums that piss you off that much. You know, just ignore them. You know, make your music stand alone on itself, because you're good enough to make really creative production. Not all the time, like 100, and, you know, I don't think that one's particularly very good, but most of the time you get it right. So I just don't know why we have this constant battle with people and people saying things about him. BMT has this pretty cool, warped and distorted beat, but again, when you pay attention to what Peggy's saying, he's the least interesting part of the track once again, talking about people on Twitter this time. Like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, Twitter people are annoying, and people on the internet will say things that they definitely wouldn't say in real life. 100% without a doubt, you know that's true. But like, addressing them on your album, I just think it's a bit corny and just, again, makes you look a bit unnecessarily bitter. Just ignore them, you know, block them. Just ignore them. They're going to say shit. They're not going to always like your music. Yes, you probably want to call them a cracker because that's what Peggy always does, but there's nothing really funny about that, considering he's called everyone a cracker pretty much on every single album. Like, Jesus Christ, it's getting as stale as Logic talking about how he's biracial, and yet, you know, Logic got absolutely dogged for that. But we don't dog Peggy for always talking about the people that don't like him. Like, it's just boring now. maybe just come at it from a new angle, but that's just me anyway. I don't know. Nice. Once again, feels like a bit of a detour interlude. At least sounds hype as hell, but I just again feel like this section of the album just has these random snippets that sound okay, isolated, to varying degrees of quality, I will say, but like just, you know, as like a holistic piece, I just feel like all of these little sections are just random as hell and don't really amount to that much. It just lacks purpose, this section of the album, and I don't think the first few tracks really led up to this at all, but yeah, it just gets a bit confusing, and I feel like the direction of the album gets lost. Untitled again is sounding okay, but just listen to Peggy's lyrics. They're just so all over the place. He references like Stone Cold Steve Austin and a bunch of other things, and I just don't even know if anything he says links to the previous thing he says, and it just all feels so random. Like, I just lose sight of what he's trying to even achieve on this track, to be honest. So yeah, I think I'm going to be in the minority here, but I think there is still a lot to like. This isn't a negative review by any means. I still think tracks like Nemo, you know, go in a really off-kilter direction that I don't think many other rappers would even dare to go in with their beats. But again, when it just kind of like feels like every track is its own little world and just goes for something very random, and putting them all together, track after track after track, they just all amount to very little. It's a really strange album, but when you first hear it, you are pretty impressed with the production, but the more you hear it, it just loses its effect for me. And like I say, Peggy himself, particularly his writing, is becoming the least interesting thing about his own music, and that's kind of worrying. That's worrying to me, but this is going to get absolutely ratioed to fuck. I think people are not going to agree with hardly anything I've said in this review, but yeah, I'm just speaking how I feel, man. But, you know, if you do have something to say in my next video, I'm going to address you and talk about how you're a naysayer and call you a cracker on every friggin' line that I say in every part of the video. I hope you're ready. I'm going to be the new Peggy. 5.5 out of 10. The longevity of this album got lost very quickly, and I don't know how. But yeah, not too keen on this one. I still think there's talent there, but like I say, something has to change with his writing. It's getting so boring, man. And keep a bit more of a holistic approach to the album, not just random little interlude skits for like half the thing, because it just feels like it amounts to nothing. But yeah, 5.5 out of 10 from me. Not too keen on this one. Definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments. I still have a bit of a cold, so sorry if my voice isn't sounding too energetic. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video, you agree. If you don't agree, let me know why in the comments. If you do agree, do let me know why. Subscribe if you haven't already for more reviews in the future, and goodbye. Have a good day. Goodbye.